Like many others, I remain concerned about the spike in COVID cases and what we're reading about the state's capacity to test people and also contact tracing. We're heading into the holidays, the flu season, and winter, and Oregon can't continue being at the bottom of the list. And as we're looking hopefully towards a vaccine next year, Oregon's response can't continue to be fragmented or siloed. As the mayor of the largest and most populous city in this state, I have a stake in our state doing better, and I look forward to being at the table to help. I also want to acknowledge the challenges that our small businesses in particular are experiencing. Our restaurants are about to go back into a closure phase on Wednesday. I want to encourage people as we go into the holiday shopping season to buy local and to shop local. And obviously that means doing it as safely as possible under the COVID restrictions, but I would really encourage people to continue to support those restaurants that are going to be providing takeout, those retailers that will remain open under the heightened COVID restrictions. And before you go to national websites to buy products, I'd really encourage people to look at our local opportunities. And I continue to work with businesses large and small to talk about ways that we can actually create centralized websites and centralized opportunities for people to purchase local. And there'll be more information about that coming out. Finally, I just want to acknowledge as we go back into this increased restriction phase starting on Wednesday, that I acknowledge this is very, very difficult for people. Our resolve is definitely being tested, but we will get through this. I encourage people to look out for each other, watch for your neighbors, call people, stay in communication, stay in contact, monitor their well-being, monitor your own well-being. We will get through this and we'll get through it together. But I just want to acknowledge this is a really tough time for everyone. And I know that we will get through this to the other side. Those are my remarks for this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Go ahead and folks, in the lower right-hand corner, if you click on the participants column, there's the raise hand option. And we can begin with the first hand up I see is Don McIntosh. Can you tell us who you work with and for? And then share your question for the mayor.
Hi, Don.
Hi, good morning. Sorry about that. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and congrats on your reelection. My question actually has nothing to do with COVID, but the recent audit of the city's prime contractor development program. I just wanted to get a chance to find out what your reaction was to the audit and just whether there are any specifics going forward of things you think that you and city council might do to address the things that were raised.
Yeah, so number one, the audit displeased me. I think it's very important that we continue to support businesses and contractors, particularly those who have historically not had access to public contracts. Those are contracts, particularly of minority contractors as well as women contractors. Obviously, what we learned from the audit was that people are gaming the system. A lot of the work is still going to firms that are ultimately owned by white men, and we have no problems with white men owning firms. What we have a problem with is when we have dollars that are specifically supposed to go towards supporting the capacity of minority contractors, and those dollars are ultimately not being used to full effect in that regard. That's a problem. That's an accountability and an oversight problem. It's a distribution problem, and it's a fairness problem. So my colleagues and I listened aggressively to what the auditor was saying about that program, the needs for change. We heard our own bureau directors say that they agree with the findings of that audit, and I'm highly motivated as the mayor to work with my colleagues to address those findings.
And do you have any sense of when you might come up with proposals or what they might look like?
So I'm already in conversations not only with Commissioners Ryan and Hardesty, but also Commissioners-elect Rubio and MAPS, we're all obviously, they have a vested interest in this too. My suspicion is that we will come back with a fuller plan the first of the new year.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Let's see, I'm not seeing any raised hands, but I do have a question from Lisa Balick in the chat room. Lisa, can you operate from your end and ask the question? Do you want to do that out loud, or shall I just read it? I'm watching.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, Mayor, the restaurant and hospitality business has told me that City Hall is not providing financial assistance with the upcoming closures especially. Will you be doing that? And if so, what?
The answer is yes, we will be. No, we have not specifically identified what those resources will be. We have obviously allocated a significant portion of our CARES dollars towards that industry. It is core to the city. It's core to our brand. We love our restaurants, our independent restaurants, our mom and pop restaurants. And obviously they are struggling really hard during the COVID crisis. We've tried to be flexible, not only in terms of direct financial support, but also in terms of the rules under which they operate, to maximize flexibility, to encourage them to innovate, to have them let us know what they need in order to be able to get through this difficult economic crisis. And we're very interested in working with them and helping them.
But nothing specific. I mean, it's been going on for some time now where their business has been severely limited and now will be limited even further starting Wednesday.
Well, we allocated $20 million towards small business resiliency from the CARES Act. We then followed on with a further, I believe it was $12 million in grant funding. I want to acknowledge that the resources that we have available to us at the City of Portland are far from sufficient to be able to support the entirety of that industry, as well as many others that are impacted economically throughout the duration of the COVID crisis. We'll do what we can with the resources we have available. We are speaking with people directly in the industry. We're willing to work with them with the resources we have available, but we're also counting on both the state and the federal government to continue to work with our jurisdiction as well as jurisdictions all across the country where restaurants in particular are really struggling.
Thank you, Lisa. I see one hand raised right now in the participant room, and it's Rebecca Ellis. Rebecca, you have a question for the mayor.
I don't hear Rebecca.
Rebecca, looks like you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, now I can.
Yeah? Oh, great. Sorry about that. Rebecca here from OPB. I'm curious, given the rise in cases in the county right now, if you think Portlanders should be canceling their Thanksgiving plans.
The governor's guidance should be adhered to. There's currently a travel, I won't call it a ban, but it is an advisory in effect between Washington, Oregon, and California. I canceled my plans. I was planning on going to Palm Springs, spending some time with family. Those are arrangements we made some time ago with maybe the irrational hope that we would be through this phase of the COVID crisis. We're not, so I've canceled those plans. I intend to stay with my family here. The governor's guidance is very clear about the number of family groups that should be getting together, no more than 2. It's clear about the number of people, 6 or fewer. And I strongly encourage people to adhere to that guidance. I will be. I encourage others to do it. I want to say I know what a disappointment this is. We talk a lot about the public health and the economic impacts of COVID and the resulting restrictions. We don't talk enough about the social and mental implications of not being able to interact with people, particularly during the holidays. And believe me, I get it. This is a sacrifice. And I said that right up front. Our resolve is absolutely being tested. But in order to knock back the contagion rate and to keep our hospitals as free and clear, or at least not reaching capacity as much as possible, so that ICUs and respirators are available for people who are in really dire shape. The rest of us, even if we're healthy, we need to make sacrifices now for not only our health, but the well-being and safety of others as well. So yes, I'm encouraging people to delay their plans until we have the opportunity later to get together as families and as community safely. But the current gubernatorial guidelines of 6 people or fewer, 2 families or less is one that should absolutely be adhered to, because it is advised by public health authorities and medical professionals that that is the safe thing to do given the spread of the contagion.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. I see where Pat Doris, I'm not seeing any other hands. If you have questions, a reminder to hit that raise hand button also. Pat Doris, AGW.
Hey, Pat.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, thanks. It's really hard to hear Tim, so I just wanted to, that's probably why we're all asking. So my question is on testing. We've been trying to figure out what's the current statewide capacity, and I'm wondering if you know what that is, and are you concerned that not enough testing is being done? Should we be testing frontline grocery workers every couple days, that sort of thing?
There's no question in my mind that tests should be more broadly available and people should be tested on a more regular basis, particularly people who come into contact with a lot of other people. In the medical profession, as well as in essential industries like those who are checking groceries, those who are bagging groceries, those who are supplying our grocery stores and our restaurants for takeout purposes. There's a lot of people out there who are interacting regularly with others who do not have access to adequate testing. So I can't sit here and tell you what I believe is the right number. I leave that to public health officials and medical experts, but I know the answer is more than what we're currently doing. And I know we also have a problem with contact tracing. Once somebody contracts COVID, it's really important to be able to reach out to others who might have been exposed to the virus. And in the absence of contact tracing being at full capacity, we don't have that ability to do it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Pat. I see one hand up now. It is Shane Kavanaugh from the Oregonian. Shane, go ahead and open your mic. And
Hi, Shane.
Hi there, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yeah, just wanted to check with you. I mean, now that the election is over, the police accountability measure passed with overwhelming support. I was just hoping you could talk a bit more about, for you, what is your top priority for police reform going into next year? If you can be specific on that, please.
I will be specific. Last week, I spoke to both Chuck Lavelle, the Portland Police Chief, as well as Bob Causey, who's the director of our Bureau of Emergency Communications, known more widely as our 911 call center. My immediate priority is to know what the baseline is with regard to public safety in Portland. And what I mean specifically is there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there that we are significantly understaffed in the Portland Police Bureau. There's anecdotal evidence that gets to my desk all day long about slow response times or even no response for high urgency calls. I need to know what's going on. So I've directed them that in relatively quick order, I would like them to give me an audit of the system, an understanding of the system in terms of how are we allocating calls from the 911 center? What is the response time for different categories of criminal activity? And are we responding on a timely basis? And if the answer is no, then I need those 2 bureau directors to give me a clear and concise plan that I can then share with my incoming colleagues on the Portland City Council starting in January. I think it's important for us to have a baseline understanding in this community about what our policing capacity is, what our response time is, and whether or not we're doing the best we can to keep the public safe. That is my first priority.
And so, Mayor, in terms of asking those types of audits to be submitted to you, are you, do you think you want to get those before the end of this year. So when the new council convenes, can be sort of a first priority. What's the timeline on those audits?
Sooner rather than later. Unless we can even agree on the baseline, we're gonna have a tough time having conversations about the path forward. So I need to know today, because I hear anecdotally about slow response times for high urgency calls. I hear anecdotally from people and fellow elected officials who tell me that they are getting insights from people who are saying the police are not responding at all. And then I'm hearing from the police on the other side that they are just running ragged, going from 911 call to 911 call, and that they do not have adequate resources. What we need is a clear and transparent baseline that I can not only share with my colleagues on the city council, but that we can share with the public and have that be a basis of discussion for what it's going to take to create public safety for everyone in this community. That's got to be step number one, is have some basic understanding of where we are with regard to police response.
But have you given a deadline to police or emergency management for when you want that information by?
I have made it clear that I need it as soon as possible.
Have they given you an idea of how long that's going to take?
Not yet. I just asked them for this information a few days ago. They believe they can provide me some preliminary information this week. That will probably lead to me requesting several follow-up items. So I don't think it will be weeks. I think it will be well before the end of the year. And as we get into the holidays here, it would be nice to have it well before the end of the year so I can start having these conversations with my incoming colleagues who are eager to work with me on this.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shane. I'm not seeing any other hands up.
Could I add one bit to Lisa Balick's question? That
Yeah.
It's been sort of gnawing at the back of my head. Lisa, to add on to the question you asked me
Sure.
about restaurants and their ability to get through this and their need for aid. For those restaurants that are going to remain open, and it's my understanding that the majority of those restaurants that provided takeout during the last shutdown are going to continue to provide takeout. I really encourage people to take advantage of that, because there's two things that are fundamentally different right now than at the beginning of the COVID crisis when indoor eating was not allowed. And what's different, first of all, is there is no Payroll Protection Act that is currently in place. Congress has not come forward yet with another package. So the employees of those restaurants don't necessarily have the same degree of financial backstop that they had before, nor does the state's employment resources necessarily have the ability to fill that gap. The second thing that's different that I'm hearing from a lot of restaurant owners, particularly the mom and pops, is they were willing to bankroll the last closure with their own savings. They've already gone through those savings. They don't have more savings. And in some cases, they've already mortgaged their homes. So there just isn't the same economic backstop there with our restaurants. That's why it's important that we, as a government institution, do everything we can to support them, whether it's reducing regulations, improving flexibility, providing direct assistance where we can provide direct assistance. And on the other hand, I have an ask of the public. And my ask of the public is, let's support some of these restaurants. If you've got a favorite restaurant out there and they're providing takeout, I know it's a little more expensive to do takeout ordinarily than it is to go to the store, but let's show these restaurants some love, because if we want them to be there on the other side of the COVID crisis, we've got to support them now.